Now when we say volcano, it'll tell us, okay, it's called a volcano. It's made up of one earth and one lava, and lava itself contains earth and fire. So if you want to be super fancy, you can, instead of doing strings, you can do like a struct that contains the strings. That what makes more sense here. You don't really need to. So yeah, so those are our basic and complex elements, and then we can just say like an element is one of, oh, we need a template for this one. So before we do element, so we need to define a complex element template. So you guys have some ideas of how to define this template? So because it's a structure, you're going to be, calling each one of the fields, right? So you have complex element. Yeah, so complex element name, complex element E1, then you have complex element E2. And you notice that because these are elements, you also need to call the element template on these. So what I'm doing here is, because we chose this style of having both basic and complex elements, it's a bit like mutual recursion, but the format's still very tree-like. So we have an element, and it's going to be one of our basic elements and one of our complex elements. So it could be either one. So I don't think we need to define any more constants for this one, because we already have like all of them here. So we'll skip straight to the template here. And so how would you write this template? This is sort of like review.
Would it be a con?
Yeah, it'd be a con, because every time you see this is one of, you want to do a con. So in this case, it's a union type and not an enumeration, but same difference, you still use a con. So you have your con, and you have, you want to see if it's a basic or a complex element, right? So if it's a basic element, so if it's a string, then you want to do something with that element, right? And if it is a complex element, so complex element, we want to call the template for that, right? So we want to call complex elements template on the element, right?
I think you called your complex element template CE-template.
We did, yeah. And you call that onto the element, right? So now that we have our data types, we're going to be defining one of these functions that's going to be using these data types. So let's write this one. So this is write a function with given two elements, determine if the first is made using the second. So we'll say we're going to call this function made with, and what are the inputs and what are the outputs? Do we call be temp if it's a string? So oh wait, hold on. Yeah, we call be temp. Sorry. Yeah, so yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So what's the signature for made with? So I mean, it says over here. So yeah, so element's a Boolean, right? So this function will determine is the second element involved in the creation of the first, and we'll do some tests, right? So you want to try all the different combinations of tests, like we did for multiple complex inputs. You want to test two basics, one basic and one complex, and two complex. So we'll say check expect made with fire water. That's going to be false. Check expect made with lava and water. That one should be false. Wait, let me double check. What's lava made out of? Lava is made out of earth and fire, so it will be false. But if we did something with fire, that would be true. Yeah, for good measure, we'll just throw earth in there as well. And we also want to test that it doesn't work the other way around. And we want to test with two different ones. So, right, so we have volcano and lava. So we want to say volcano is made up of lava, and that one is also true. This one's going to be false. So do you understand why I made each one of these check expects? So I'm basically thinking to myself, what kind of mistakes can I make, and how do I test that? How do I test that those mistakes are not going to happen? So these are all the tests that I have. And now we will do some definition. So define made with E1, E2. And we can copy the template from here. So I think we just need the con part. Yeah. So if it is a string, what do we want to do? What do we want to do if it's a string? Yeah, return false, right? Because two element, well, actually, wait. What we should really test is like should this case be true though? Should this case be true? Makes sense that it should, right? So maybe we'll add these and we'll take these into consideration as well. So in that case, what should we do here?
String equals, huh?
Yes, you want to test if those two are equal, right? So you can say string equals E1 and E2. So that's all we need. So Kano Lee is saying make an if statement, and in this case we don't, because if we make an if statement, all we're going to do is that, and I like if you've done this on your homework, you would have known that like this is redundant, so we don't need this because it's exactly the same as this. So we just leave it like that. And for complex elements, we will. It says here use the template, so we're going to write a helper function here. So we're going to say made with. Well, this is sorry, yeah. So it's why it's asking a good question. So how do we know which element is being called? So which one should we be testing here? Are we testing E1 or E2? Check E1. Why E1 and why not E2? Right, if it's E1, it's basically came with a complex, yeah. So I guess I'm not sure if I can use string here then, because can you test if things are like not the same? Yeah, so what we want to do here is something like and otherwise just false, something like that. Or you can simplify these two. Yeah, I think it'd be best if you had all four of these cases. In this case, I think you can get away with just string E1 and complex E1, and then you can say this you can simplify to, I think, and no, or. Yeah, this you could simplify like this. But if you're ever worried about these multiple complex input things, you should go through all four of the combinations. Is this multiple complex inputs with two trees? Not quite. This is multiple complex inputs with two. Wait, hold on. String one, string two. I guess you can say, yeah, this is multiple complex input with two trees because you have E1 and E2. So I'm sorry this is getting like super complicated. I did not plan for it to be this way, but hopefully you guys are seeing like if it's a string, we want to test that because if E2 is not a string, this would never pass, and if it is a string, it has to also pass this case. So that's why we use and. And for complex element E1, we want to call a helper function on, is it E1 or E2? Or both? I think probably the easiest way is to do both. Maybe you can do a helper function like a local one. I think we'll put E1 and E2 for now, and if at some point we realize we don't need E2, we can get rid of it later. So this one's made with complex elements. So how are we changing the signature here? Because that's going to change the signature. Yeah, so we know that the first element is a complex element. So we can do this. The second element we're still not quite sure of. So we can leave it like this. We're still doing a Boolean. And it's still going to be the same thing. And I think a lot of the check specs are going to be the same as well. So I'm just going to copy the whole thing. And we know that these are not complex elements. We can get rid of these two cases and this one. And you aren't testing the CE and E case. Yeah, so you're talking about the complex and basic case, right?
Yeah, in made with, your first
Yeah,
pass is checking the string,
yeah.
The element and the element complex element, but
Yeah.
your second case is only checking complex, at least as written.
So in the second case, it's only checking complex or complex. So I'm saying
You're
complex
asking,
element and non-com. So this could be either complex or basic.
Okay.
So we'll deal with that later. We'll probably need to write another helper function here. So it's going to be a lot like what you did for, I think, homework 10 with the multiple complex inputs. Well, I think there are some examples here that are probably a bit simpler that don't require multiple complex inputs, but yeah. So we have these tests and they should still be the same. We'll just have to add that CE at the end. And so because it's a complex element, we can use the complex element template. And we need to do something with the name, right? Something with the name and something with both sides. So in this case, we're looking at E1 because we know it's a complex element. So we want to see whether, so what are we testing here? So here we're testing that the element name of the first one matches the element of the second one, element name of the second one, right? Here we're testing that E2 appears anywhere on the left-hand side of E1. And here we're testing if E2 is anywhere on the right-hand side of E1. So we want to do an OR here, just to see that either of any of these cases could be true, and they would all pass. So we have this OR and then these three cases. And in this case, what we want to do is we want to see if there's a match between this one and E2, right? And in these cases, we can call the recursion, and we'll put E2 in here. So we're saying, does it match? Or is E2 in the left-hand side, or is E2 in the right-hand side? So I think the only other thing we have to write now is match. So this is a complex element to Boolean, same as before. Is the second element the same as the first? And we can get all of these guys. This one's false, this one's true, true, and I think the rest are false. And because this time we're looking at element, So this time we're looking at element. So because we really care about the second one, because we want to figure out if that one is a string or if that's a complex element. So we'll be using the element template on the second one now. So match E1, E2. And what happened? Okay. So E1 and E2. So if E2 is a string, we want to see if that string matches the complex element's name, right? Wait, made with. Actually, we don't need to test this because if the first one is a complex element and the second one is a regular element, it'll always be false, right? And if the second one is a complex element, we want to see if their names match. So we want to go string equals complex element name E1 and complex element name E2. Now I passed it the name. Do I want to pass it the name? Doesn't really matter. We'll give it E1. It doesn't matter. We'll just it's a very simple transition between these two, but we'll say if E1 matches E2, and that these two names match, then it would be true. So yeah. So I think that's all we need. We can do this. We'll see if it runs. So this is made with was defined previously, was it now? Oh, it was. Okay. Yeah, so notice that in this recursion, we're calling made with and not made with CE because we don't know if this is going to be, we don't know if that's going to be a simple element or a complex element. So we have to call the regular made with. But match, we know that this one is going to be a complex element. So that's why we call match E1 like that. So let's try running again. We got some tests failing. So where are the tests failing? We got 198. So these tests are failing. It's like, is this second element the same as the first one? So did that say that was true? Oh, I'm testing the wrong function. My bad. So let me just change these. Okay, so in line 195, this one is saying, oh, because it's a complex element, right? So we can get rid of this one. We can get rid of this one as well. So most of these tests are passing except for this one, which is 198. I want to see if earth and lava, yeah, same deal. That one is not a complex element. So yeah, so all of these 18 tests pass. So you want to make sure that your tests actually satisfy the signature. So yeah, I think that's all we have time for today. These other exercises, I will also send to you for you to try out. Do you guys want like 2 different versions with the unfilled and the filled? This is more complicated than what will be on the exam. Yeah, I don't think you would get multiple complex inputs on trees. I'm sorry, I should have thought this one through. But yeah, this turned out to be multiple complex inputs on trees. These like this one, write a function that determines the number of basic elements. I think this is the type of stuff that might be on the exam. So yeah. Sorry about that. So if you want to determine basic elements, you just recurse on both sides, and you would, when you get to the basic elements, you'd return 1 and you just add them all together at the end. So yeah, I think that's all we have time for today. I will send
yeah.
you both of them.
Yeah, so we'll just make like a Google Drive and then we'll put everything
Yeah.
there so that
Okay. Okay,
yeah,
that sounds good.
everything is at the same place. Also like for like Jonathan's examples, even though like it might not come on the exam, it's still a good practice in case, you know, the professors decide, hey, this is the time to trick students. Let's give them
Yeah.
multiple complex inputs with 2 trees, and then now you're like, hey, Jonathan taught us. We are prepared for it. Yeah. So Jonathan, is there anything else that you're covering right now, or do you think that's it?
I think that's it. The rest of it was kind of just examples.
Okay, cool.
So,
So
yeah.
can you stop sharing? I just have like one final slide.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I'll just end it. Okay, cool. So just like tips for exam, people can see this, right? Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, cool, perfect. So just I think a good tip is to know abstractions really well, because you will have like at least one question on it for sure. When you're dealing with like trees and mutual recursion, if you don't really understand how to move forward with it, try following the template, because that will make your job easier. And even if you're not able to complete the problem in complete, you have followed majority of the design recipe, such that now you can like at least get a good amount of partial credits. A couple of other things is like I think you should review your exam ones and homeworks and see what are the mistakes that you made and what are the things that you should be avoiding. And if you still have questions about those, like, you know, some mistake you made, you don't understand, try coming to office hours. We have like a good amount of office hours going on. Practice exam 2 will be covered in tomorrow's session. So like try to see if you're able to like solve the questions on that before you come for the session. Usually just read all questions and instructions on the exam before starting, and like no matter what, like if even if you're not able to understand what's going on in the problem, don't give up. Like write something, you know, write like more signatures and purpose statements and tests, and try making templates and, you know, changing the templates to see if you can get some code out of it. But write as much as you can, because there is a good amount of scope for like partial credit. And so if you leave it completely blank, it's like the easiest job for us, which is like give a 0 and kind of move on. So yeah, make our jobs tougher, don't make it easier, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry for like, you know, extending it over the time. I felt we should have sort of timed it, or maybe like divided it in a better manner. It's just like there are too many topics to kind of cover, so it sort of became an issue. Tomorrow's session should be hopefully less than 2 hours, or not hopefully, it should be less than 2 hours, because that exam should be covered in 2 hours. So yeah, hopefully it's like under an hour, and it gives you enough time to like review. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna stop wait, sorry, not stop recording.